everyone, and thank you for joining us. So with this webinar, we're introducing the Azure TotalView Insights for testing. We have myself on the call, Shir Goldberg. I'm the founder of the company, and together with me we also have Thomas. Thomas is the product manager in Azure.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so just a bit of practicalities first. The webinar will be about 40 minutes. We will have time for questions and answers. We'll try to answer as many as we can. During the webinar, please free to write down your questions. There is a questions pane in the GoToMeeting webinar you should have open. So just type your meetings in there. At the end of the webinar, we're gonna pick up those questions and ask them. As you exit the webinar, there should be a survey form popping out. We really appreciate the feedback, if you could share that. And you will receive a recording of this webinar and the slide deck we're going to show within a few days. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, just shortly about Azure. We'll discuss the ALM analytics, basically the historical background, what are the main challenges that has been there over the years, what led us really to create insights for testing, and what are the key objectives and business value we bring to the customers. We'll continue with a demo, touch on some advanced topics such as customizations, additional data sources, a few words about our roadmaps and plans, how we continue with this direction, and then Q&A and a word about future webinars. So with that, let's begin about Azure. So we were founded about 10 years ago. We are nowadays a software company. We focus on providing insights and control in IT projects and programs. The way we do that is analytics, forecasting and predictability in SDLC and really DevOps. The focus is really reporting on quality and in the impacts it has on the whole DevOps lifecycle. Our clients are, we have certain verticals we are stronger than others. That includes financials, telecoms, life sciences. There are also customers in technology, retail, and others. So definitely not limited to these verticals on the screen. Okay, so let's talk about what has happened with ALM Analytics. And I'm going to share some information here. I'm not sure it's 100% accurate, but it's close enough to reality. The whole thing started as quality center, or actually test director, with reports and graphs included in the tool. These are still definitely very much around. Next came something that used to be called advanced reports. That was based on actual technology. If most of you don't know what I'm talking about, it's no wonder. This has been discontinued a long time ago. It hasn't succeeded. Next came Excel reports, which are still in there. Executive scorecard, later renamed ITBA, came next. That was, the idea was to bring a cross project with additional data sources. We heard recently this has been discontinued as well. And cross-project analytics, so cross-project reporting inside the ALM. The thing with this solution is performance. I think by default it's limited to 5 projects alone, and that's due to performance limitations. And now we have business views. These are based on SQL. The future of that is also, again, from what we've heard, is uncertain. And the last thing HP has been working on for the past, I think, at least 2 years is predictive analytics, which again is, for the best of my knowledge, it's going to Octane, but not to ALM. Okay, and not even sure when. All right, so that's pretty much the high-level track record. There might be some other entries here we have missed, and the order might not be exactly right, but it gives you a very good idea of what has been done. All right. Now, the reason for this track record is really the challenges, and I'll go over some of these challenges. The first one is really cross-project reports on a large scale. We have customers with well over 1,000 projects there, and you need to be able to report on all of these separate databases or database schemas. That's quite a challenge. The other thing is trend reports showing history. Trends are difficult, very heavy, and some of the data required for these trends does not even exist in the ALM database. I can give you an example for requirement coverage over time. There is no way for me to know what the coverage situation was yesterday or a week ago. Okay. The next challenge is customers have very customized ways of working, which making it challenges creating and really out-of-the-box solution. It makes it very difficult. Different customers have different fields. They use folder structures or they don't use folder structures and so on. Next one, you need a platform that enables you to have advanced metrics and calculations, right? So there could be a need for something very technical. Next bullet, performance impact on operative system. So think about you have reports that run directly on the databases that you use for data entry and for everyday work. You run a heavy query and it brings the whole system down to its knees. You don't want that to happen. Other things are central access and scheduled reports and a complex database structure. The ALM database structure is not reporting friendly, to say the least. Okay, so within this timeline, I'll tell you a bit what happened with TotalView over this time. So TotalView was introduced at about here, that's about 2010. That's when we started working on it. Actually, maybe a bit before. Now, the first thing we created was the engine. It's automated data collection. It's a dedicated reporting data mart. So it's a single location that holds all the data you have in ALM and is used exclusively for reporting. The next thing that followed very quickly was creating customized dashboards and for really specific for customers, built for the ground up for according to customer requirements. Now we've been doing that for quite a few years. Learned a lot in the process, and what we are actually announcing today is out-of-the-box dashboards for testing. It includes the industry's most common metrics, rapid deployment, and very suitable for for pretty much any size of environment, up to the largest ones out there. Another branding is now the back end is called TotalView Data, right? That's the automated data collection and data mart. Whereas the out-of-the-box dashboard is now called TotalView Insights. And the first one out of the oven is TotalView Insights for testing. Okay, so how TotalView looks today, we can start from the back end, and there is some hints about our roadmap here, as you can see. First of all is the TotalView data. It holds key enterprise data sources. It serves the ALM, the DevOps, the Agile, and it includes a standardization piece. It's really standardize your data across projects. This is crucial for reporting, and that's a completely different topic, which we've been involved with for quite many years. The last part, of course, is the visualizations, the insights, and that's where the tangible value comes into play. You can actually see the different metrics. It's advanced user interface. It's interactive, configurable. You have access management and so on. Okay, so that's really an overview of how the TotalView product looks today. Okay, so some of the benefits of insights for testing, and here I'll cover what the key points of what we've done and why we've done it. First of all, rapid deployment. We want to have something that customer buys TotalView. Pretty much within a day or two, they can see results on the screen, right? And not just results, but these results would bring, first of all, cross-project analytics solution immediately, and it would already bring some valuable insights. Now, the dashboard is aimed, as it is today, for the management layer, also covering operations and delivery teams. So the information in the dashboard, it enables you to look at metrics on a business line level, on a program, on a project, on a release. So it covers all of these levels, and you will see that shortly in the demo. The other part, of course, is really the TotalView data. It's a dedicated automated data collection. It's a data mart structure, and for you who are familiar a bit with the business intelligence, it's a star schema, it's facts and dimension tables, and it includes out-of-the-box metrics and dashboards, right? The idea of the dashboard, now, one of the big challenges is customizations, because we know that every customer works differently. Every customer has different user-defined fields. They use them differently. So the dashboard, we are well aware it won't give you 100% answer to your specific customized needs, right, for customers. However, it serves as a really good base to create your customized dashboards. You can take the insights for testing, and you can modify it according to your needs. You can add additional data sources, right? You can measure if you have approval processes, compliances, quality framework maturity. You can change the calculations, you can change the thresholds, you can do really extend it as much as you wish. And the last bullet, we've seen some customers that the data quality is not that great, right? And once you put a dashboard on top of the data, the data quality issues would become visible very quickly, and that could really serve as a driver for standardization. We've seen customers who put TotalView in their organization and they bring projects into it only if the data quality is good enough. Okay, so it serves like, it's really using a very nice carrot. Like, if you fix your data, you're going to get these great dashboards. All right, so I would stop here with the slides and jump right into the demo, which I guess is the interesting part for most of you. Okay, so what I'm showing you right now, it's a dashboard. It runs in a browser. So this is a Internet Explorer. It can run also in Chrome and others. And what you see here, let me just explain the layout. On the left-hand side, I have high-level, I have filters. My filters are domain, which these are ALM domains. I have business line, which is it's really the only customization with data from outside of ALM in this dashboard. And I have a list of projects. Now, the list of projects is fairly extensive. I'm not even sure how many I have here. Okay, pardon me for a second, it's reconnecting. Okay, so I've several hundred projects here. These are ALM projects. Right now, the top level metrics I have here are, we chose 5 top level metrics. Again, these could be changed by customers and modified. First one is projects on time. Then we have the level of requirement coverage, defect rejection rates, okay, defect resolution time. How long does it take me to deal with defects? And I can switch here between all defects and critical and high. You can see critical and high is 9 days, whereas if I look at all my defects, it's 13 days. You can see the difference. And then we have test automation level, right? One word about these thresholds throughout the dashboard. You can see we have the red, amber, and green. The thresholds are configurable. It's an Excel file. You can add it. It's as simple as that. Okay. The other thing on in here are the list of projects. So you can see the list of projects. For example, if I look at defect rejection, I can see which project has on average the highest defect rejection rate. And I can, I can sort it, right? So this goes from, for example, test automation from best to worst. I can, of course, flip it on its head, and I can see all the projects that have zero test automation. Now, the way I use the filters is, for example, if I select a certain business line. So if I select investment, you can see defect rejection is 5.1 for my whole organization. And if I select investment, it went to 6.4. Okay, and I see only the projects related to my investment business line, right? So you can see already the power this gives me on a high level. If I'm responsible for a single business line, I don't really care about all the rest. I select my business line and then continue working with the dashboard accordingly. Right. So, and the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to drill down. So each of these metrics, when I click on it, I get a drill down screen. So the drill down screen shows me the different projects that exist in my scope. My scope currently is investment, right? Now, what I see here, the color, of course, represents the level of defect rejection. The size of each square represents the size of the problem, right? So, for example, I have these two projects in red, but from my whole investment, I see they are not very large. Okay, so although the percentage is high, it's a bit less of a worry. Now, the way I can see it, I can just hover the mouse over it. I see this is maybe 1,300 defects, whereas my biggest project is almost 60,000 defects. Okay, now I can continue and drill down a bit more. If I click on a single project, I'm going to get a breakdown of all my releases, right? And you can see I have one huge release that for some reason the rejection rate is fairly high. However, I have another release where you can see it's 100. All the defects in it have been rejected. It's this tiny little red speck down here in the corner. So although it's interesting, again, it's not my biggest worry here. All right. We can look at another example. Let me switch to the retail, and I go to test automation. And I see in test automation, for example, that I have only one project that has a decent percentage of test automation. However, when I look at all my retail business line, again, this project is fairly small. There are notes also on the dashboard telling you what is the size of each square. What does it mean? In this case, the area means the number of test cases. All right, just a reminder, if you do have questions, please write them down into the questions pane. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to use something called bookmarks. Right, so bookmarks are if I have a view that interests me and I want to always go to the same view with the same selections, I can use bookmarks. A bookmark can be shared or can be private. For example, I'm going to look at the Credit Explorer project. Okay, so this is a project view, a single project or a single release that is a multi-project. And what we've done here, we try to put on the screen the most important information, for a project or a release level. What you see on the top, there are certain metrics for requirements. You're probably very familiar with most of them: coverage, the past percentage, stability of requirements, meaning how much requirements have been changing. I think by default is over the past month. Number, when it comes to testing, number of block tests, execution rate, pass rate, automation level, and then defects. On defects, you can see I have 1,400 defects, out of which I have 37 outstanding defects, right? Out of which 20 are high and critical. Okay, rejection rate, defect density, and defect resolution on average for this project. If I go down, we have the aging of defects. This is historical data, so this is why the numbers are high. But basically, I group the aging of defects by days. You can say 5 which are under 300 days and 30 over 500 days, and so on. Daily throughput, what is my rate of work and what is my required rate of work to meet the deadlines. Next one is test execution trend and the trend of defects. Okay, probably the most interesting is the orange line, which means it shows me the number of outstanding defects. All right. Let's move to specifically to requirements. I'll just give an example here. Let's look at a requirement injection rate. And let me search again for my project. That's another nice feature, the search. I can just type and search for something which I'm interested in. This is how requirements are injected into my project over time. So what you see here is it's quite many years that this project has been active. What you see here, there's pretty much the big ramp up happened at around 2010, 2011. This is a very long-living project. Okay, the other thing is to look at the requirement scope. So some interesting things here. You see that most of my requirements have a single test case. Okay, and you can see it even here. The median for number of test cases per requirement is 1. It's not that great probably, right? I do have a single requirement that has over 100, at around 150 test cases for this requirement. If I look across the organizations, there are much higher numbers. So these are things that can help you improve on the quality, how you do testing, methodology, and so on. I'll jump to testing, and here I'm going to actually select a release. So let me search for a specific release. We're going to look at this release, and there are a couple of things to look at. First of all, on the left, right, you see that almost all of my test cases, a very large number, has a single step, okay, or a very small number of steps. I have some test cases with a much higher number, with 400 steps. Okay, and if I want to know which one are those, I can zoom in. So I have actually more than one. 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 of them. I go to test detail and I can see the list of these specific test cases. Okay, number of steps is visible here. So you can see that the drill down can go to the really single test or single defect or single requirement level. So let me remove this filter. And the other thing that is interesting is, of course, what probably many of you heard as the first pass, right? So how many of my test cases passed on the first run? So you see it's quite a high number, the vast majority. I have one rebel here that took 15 runs to actually to get it to pass. So that would be something to probably investigate. Okay, some other metrics here, average number of steps per test case, retest requirements, first time pass, median runs to last pass, and so on. Okay. All right, I'm just checking the questions. I see there are quite many questions coming up. We'll get to them later at the Q&A. Okay, next one, if we look at defects. So for defects, let's see what I can show you. So we have, I'm not going to go into every screen here. It would take quite a bit of time. Defects is a whole world. We do have customers who focus on defects alone. Mainly what's important here is, again, I can do whatever selection I want. I have average severity and priority levels, rejected and deferred defects. This is important as well. I can see defects by severity. I can see distribution by status. I can zoom in. I can look, say, okay, show me only the critical defects, right? And I can see how these are distributed. Okay. I can look at state transitions, which is another interesting topic. What I'm looking at here is looking for how my defects move from one state to another. Okay, and what does it mean? Are there any holes in the process? Are there things that shouldn't happen? So for example, if I select from status new, I can see that the vast majority went to open, a certain portion went to duplicate, and about 200 were rejected immediately from new. They were not even open first. Okay, so these are the sort of information you can get, right? Or if I'm looking at closed, what statuses they came from. So they all came from ready to test, which is a good thing. Somebody was working according to the process in this project. All right. The next part, I'm going to stick to this release. And let's look at predictive analytics a bit. So what we've done here, we were really sitting and thinking, how can we first of all predict if we are going to be on time or not? Okay, so let's start with that. So what I know when I look at execution, I know the rate of execution. I know how fast I'm executing tests in this release so far, right? I know also how many testers have been involved in this release so far. Okay, I know the total number of tests. I know how many outstanding tests I have, which is 243 is right here. So given all of this information, I know the release end date is April 24th. Right, I'll just switch to full screen. So I know that I'm the release is on April 27th, right? But the forecasted end date is 29th. That means I'm really 3 days late. That's the schedule variance. Okay. Now there are a couple of things that I can do here, and think I'm the release manager. I say, okay, what do I have to do? I'm 3 days late, and I want to be on time. So first of all, some customers have a test execution target. They don't even aim to test 100%. They aim to test, 98%. Okay, so if I move that to 98, you can see that I'm actually going to be on time. I'm actually 1 day early, right? So that's the first thing that could be of interest. Now let us move this back to 100%, say that my corporate policy, I have to test 100% of the test cases. The other thing I can do is scale my testing team. And what I can do, I can say, okay, what happens if I increase my team in 40%? What happens? And you can see it brings me exactly on time, right? If I increase it a bit more to 50%, I'm a day early, which is probably what I want to do. Now, what that means in practice is you can see the delta of testers I would need to add is 12 testers. Okay, so think about a delivery team that has to deliver a testing for a project or a release or really what have you, and how these can really help them. right? There is also, by the way, a timeline saying when does the release start and when does it end, how many days are left to complete. So that gives you a sense of the timeline. Okay, I'll just reset that. I'll select a different release. And I'm going to switch to the defects view. Right, so on defects, the prediction is similar, however, it's a bit more complicated. This central area here is really the current state, the defects. I know how many defects have been detected, how many closed, how many are outstanding. So I have 111 defects outstanding. I know how many defects I close per day, right? But this is not enough. The other important thing is how many testing I still have to do. So if I have 40 outstanding tests, I already know how many defects I've been finding per test case so far, right? So if I have almost a ratio of about 1 to 2, that means I'm expecting to still detect about 20 defects. That would bring my total expected, defects I need to deal with to 131. Given my rate of closure, that means it will take me 25 days to close all the defects, meaning I'm going to be 23 days late, right? So that's the calculation. It really gives the managers a direction or an indication. Obviously, if you have a release that spans, I don't know, let's say 4 weeks, it's going to get more and more accurate the closer you get, of course, to the end, because it's all based on historical information. Right, so that's the predictive part. Let me take off this filter, and I'm gonna jump to the last screen on the insights for testing, which is the cross-entity comparison. So what we've done here, we tried to give something that customers can really play with and export it and use it outside of the dashboard itself. And what you see here are actually is quite a long list of metrics, right? It covers most of the metrics that are scattered all around the dashboard. You can see requirement related, testing related, defect related metrics. Okay, and what I can do, I can drill down. So for example, I'm looking at my retail business line. Right, so I go into retail, and the next thing I want is a breakdown. Show me all the projects in retail. How do they compare to each other? Right? So now I have all the projects. I want to see which project has the highest number of outstanding defects, which are critical and high. So I just double click on the top of the column, and I can tell you these are my 3 projects that have the highest number of outstanding defects, right? Or I want to see who's doing the best automation level of tests. You can see it's RDP Global. That's the top one. Okay, so this enables you to see all this information. Now, the other thing I could do, I could actually drill down further. So I can select a project. Let's just see, I'll try this one. So I select a specific project, and then I want to break and see all the releases in this project. Okay, so this goes down to this sort of level. And everything can be exported to Excel with a single click. I get all this information. I can change it, share it, and so on. All right, so that's pretty much it for the demo. Let's see the Q&As. Actually, I have a couple of more slides. We'll go to the Q&A and see if we have to go back to the dashboard based on the questions. Okay, some advanced points here, advanced topics. Number one is customizations, and when we talk about customizations, the first one that's going to come up is how do we deal with user-defined fields? Okay, so user-defined fields, although the whole dashboard you just saw in the demo, it doesn't have a single user-defined field. But we are well aware that these are extremely important. Think of fields like that describe the application under test, or a field that describe the root cause of a defect, right? Pretty much everybody has those fields, but we don't know exactly where they are in the project. Now, user-defined fields, they need to be, first of all, brought into the TotalView data. That's fairly easy. And they're automatically loaded to the dashboard, but they are not shown on the screen, right? It's a fairly simple procedure to add them to the screen. Actually, I think I could try and show that real quick. So if I go back, let me go to defects. I am okay. So what I'm doing here, I'm gonna add an object that shows the root cause of defects for this whole organization. What I do, I create a new sheet object. I say, okay, I want a pie chart. I'm gonna put it here. Let me just move it. Okay, and let me configure this thing. What I do is first I have to select a dimension, and I'm going to search for root cause analysis, right? I have a defect field for that, and my expression is really what do I count? So I'm going to count total defects. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So now I have already, you can see a pie chart. I'm not going to touch right now all the titles, although these are wrong. But what I see here is a breakdown of my different root causes. So if I select, let's say, a few of these releases, okay, I have some information. I want to see the critical defects, and you can see that I have two of them are existing issue and one is environmental issue, right? So that's how I can deal with user-defined fields. Okay, back to our slides. Adding folder structures. Some customers are very dependent on folder structures. These are not reflected in the really out of the board dashboard on the insights for testing. However, these are easy to add. It's ready behind the scenes. The dashboard comes with full documentation. There's a metrics catalog. The calculations are explained. All of that exists. The thresholds are customizable, as I've already mentioned. The other topic that comes up often is how do you add additional data sources? So one example is already included, and these are the business lines. What we've done, it's a simple Excel sheet which lists all the projects and which business line they belong to. Other data sources can be added, of course. These can include really anything, but the most common ones are things that represent the org charts and the project information. Okay, a couple of words about the roadmap. So we're moving towards creating insights for DevOps, right? Azure Data will support additional data sources. Jira is currently in development and will be released soon. So as you saw, insights for testing. Right now, we're going to have insights for really for development. ServiceNow is in design, and definitely more data sources to come later. The Azure Insights, so that's the backend, right? The Azure Data. The Azure Insights will extend with additional dashboards as well. That's a direction we're moving as a company. Okay, so let me check the questions. There are quite many of them. So I think we have some time. I'll try to answer as much as I can. Okay, so first clarification, the project here, when I was talking about this dashboard, is an ALM project. Some customers represent project as a user-defined field or by the folder structures. The dashboard would have to be adapted and configured to support that. Okay. The other thing is there are questions about who is using this solution. So I think this solution is aimed at really different levels of users and different roles. It goes from anything like the QA director, right, all the way down to the test manager. And somewhere in the middle, they could be the people responsible for improving the test process, right? You can find irregularities, you can find things that needs to be fixed. The dashboard is another thing to mention. The dashboard is live, meaning we update it from the data sources on a regular basis. So that's something I did fail to mention. Okay. Other question is how will TotalView work with Octane? So we've done an analysis of Octane. We haven't put much emphasis on it because the user community is still fairly small. That would come down the road. Right. Another question is how frequently the data is updated. That depends on several factors. We've seen anything from 20 minutes to to few times a day. It really there is a wide range. It depends a lot on the data volumes. It depends on the hardware you put in place. Okay. What else? How do we know what are the metrics calculations? So the metrics calculations are documented. These are shared as part of the dashboard deployment. So all of that will be shared with you. Can the dashboard be modified? Yes, absolutely. The dashboard can be modified, and we encourage customers to modify it according to their needs. We have a question. What if user-defined fields are different across projects? Okay, so that's a bit tricky. As I said before, data quality is always an issue, and user-defined fields that are different across projects are a significant problem. Now there are several approaches to that. First of all, if you have the same user-defined fields across a business line or a group of projects or a ALM domain, then that's not a problem, right? You can have the dashboard and filter out everything other than the the solid unit of data you're looking at, right? So if I have domain A and I know everything there is okay when it comes to user-defined fields, I'm going to have a dashboard just for this domain. And if domain B is different, I could duplicate the dashboard and have a separate dashboard that looks at the different user-defined fields for domain B. However, in order to solve this problem once and for all, we have what's called TotalView standardization, and I do encourage you to join this webinar on May 9th. So we're going to focus on specifically on standardization in ALM. Okay. Right, there is a question about how to include projected number of requirements or projected number of test cases. So let's talk about projected number of requirements. The number of projected requirements should be captured somewhere. If you know how many requirements will be added, put it in a user-defined field and add that to the dashboard, add the value to your calculations. Okay, that's the way to do that. Okay, any other questions that we have? There's a question about the recording. It will be shared with you, most definitely. Question about license model. So the license is really based on the number of users that will use the dashboard. That can range, depends on the organization, depends who you open it for. We have customers with over 1,000 users. So it really depends. Others are much smaller. Okay, another question is what's the added value on new projects? So on new projects, first of all, you can see the state. You know where you stand at every moment. You don't have to go and I have a bunch of new projects. Instead of going one after one and see where I stand, I can open a single screen in the dashboard and I know where I stand there. I know how my testing is going. I know the counts of entities. I know how many defects are pending. That definitely helps. Okay. The historical data, it depends how you use it. You can look at historical trends and try to learn from it. Okay. But there is a lot of value with just the current status. That's what we see most customers are really struggling with. Okay, there are quite a few questions about business lines, how business lines are defined. So business lines, I just switch back to the dashboard. The business lines are defined in an Excel sheet. So I take the list of ALM projects and I say, okay, project A, B, C, and D belong to retail. 4 other projects belong to investments and so on. So this is external. Obviously, it's not in ALM. It's based on an Excel sheet. Okay, let me see if there's anything else. Okay, I think we're good for now. There's a bunch of other questions which I can reach out to the individual people. Questions about pricing and so on. Okay. Last slide is really thank you very much for joining. And please remember the survey that should pop out after the webinar is done. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next webinar. Thank you very much.